meeting. Is there any public comment on items not on today's agenda? And I will just remind folks that tomorrow at 9 a.m. there will be our third meeting of the Big Sky Passenger Rail Authority Board of Directors, and all members of the public are welcome to that. And as a bit of an aside, our passenger rail efforts here in Montana have gone international. As of this morning, we were featured in a publication in Portugal. So if any of you know Portuguese, well, even if you don't, I have some snippets in the podcast, and I was speaking the same language that I'm uttering right here. So anyway. Okay, any other public comments on items not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move into Jason. Oh, Jerry Marks, your agenda item. This is a PSA with Elkhorn Commissioning Group.
Yes, this is a professional service agreement with this group for $63,662. They basically play a role between the construction people and the sources for particular technical equipment and how we're putting that stuff together at our new facility. So that's the role they play.
Great. Any questions, Josh?
So Jerry, can you kind of sketch out what this is going to look like?
Which this agreement?
No, I'm thinking like the gardens and.
Oh,
yeah.
I don't have that in front of me, but we could certainly show that to you. Yes.
I think I could be drifting. I don't mean to drift too far. This is my enthusiasm, not my.
Okay, good.
Oh, Martin's got his hand up. Maybe Martin has a question.
Before Jerry skips off, can you define your timeline and kind of where you are in the project and when you may begin moving forward?
Yes. We still have a number of things to work through, but we're still trying to target the end of March, first part of April to start construction. But we have a lot more to work through yet.
Thank you.
Great. All right. Thanks, Jerry.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
With that, I'm happy to move that the board approve the PSA.
Second.
Oh, Juanita's joined us. Excellent. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks, Jerry.
Thanks,
Congratulations. March and April are not that far off.
I know it. Yes, and there is a ton of meetings going on.
All right. Thanks so much. Good luck.
Yes.
Okay, Dory Brownlow and/or Casey Gannon. We have a letter to Missoula Redevelopment Authority requesting MRA funds for improvements to the elections complex.
Casey, do you want to?
Yeah, sure. I can start us off here, Dory. Yeah, hey, Commissioners. So this is just a simple letter for our application for MRA funding to help with the election center site. Pretty much we pulled out many of the ADA improvements we'd like to see across both the election center and the elections office space, including a lift for the new office space, since it is a 3 kind of tiered building, just to provide better access for public to view the elections process. And then as well as accessible bathrooms and ramps and sidewalks for the new site plan that we're implementing there. So those are some of the things, as well as we're also asking for some help maybe with some of the landscaping over the large area, since it is kind of an undeveloped lot. Now we're going to be putting in lots of trees across the whole parking lot area to kind of green it up a bit. And then also help with the south end of the election center, which is going to be the counting center, but also when we're not having elections can be used as a training room, as well as a large public meeting space in case of large events. We need a larger room. So those are some of the things we have on our request, and we'll be presenting it to MRA in the next few weeks, I believe.
How much are we requesting? I don't have the letter up yet.
Yep, so the total request is for $671,000. We kind of broke it out into priority of the ADA improvements, which is for $261,800, and then the landscaping is another about $80,000, and then the south building is $330,000. So we kind of broke it out in terms of priorities and what we see applies best to the MRA application.
Great.
Yeah,
Thank you.
really hope this works. Thanks.
And Dave, you are on the schedule to attend the MRA meeting, but as is Chris and Casey, and probably as important too is Eric from Jackson Contractor Group. So to answer sort of detailed questions about the project and phasing and the way it would work on much of this, and why we really wanted to get that in is, of course, they're working on their FY22 budget soon, and there are probably lots of requests from different private entities, and so some of it would be reimbursed. So let's say, you know, we do the 330,000 public space and counting center, it'd probably be reimbursed over a period of years, all dependent on what kind of tax increment financing comes in. So they can't really guarantee how that money will come in, but and I also know from an email from Dale, just to let him know that we were doing this, which, I mean, he knew we kind of expanded the scope a little bit from ADA, but he's aware of that, and that he will try to be at that meeting, and that he and the mayor are supportive. So
That's great. Dory, do you know the general boundaries of this district?
oh gosh, it's, I mean, it's pretty big. All the Sawmill district is in it.
Well, there's going to be a lot of increment there. My gosh, it's developing quickly.
Right. You know, they provided some funding for the new Blackfoot building. It doesn't, I believe it goes, I can't remember if it goes across Broadway, but it's a different district that has all the Scott Street improvements. So that's good for us. So it's a good district for funding coming in. I don't know what other asks they have right now, other than they just awarded the police 230,000, I think it was, for showers and locker room, which is obviously a good project too. So that area by the Good Food Store there, where the police are, is included.
Dory, when's the MRA meeting?
February 18th at noon.
Okay, I will be there to introduce the folks who truly have expertise. So, other questions or motions?
Move to approve the letter.
I'll second that.
Very good. Any further discussion on the letter? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thanks, Dory. And
Great, thanks.
Casey.
In
Thanks for
case
your
it's
support.
a team effort.
Yeah.
This is great. Okay, moving on. Is Colleen Morris with us? This is authorization for the chair to sign Amendment 1 to the Montana DP HHS task order related to immunization.
Yes, hi, I'm here. So I'm Colleen Morris. I manage the immunization clinic, and we at Missoula City County Health Department, and we just received an amendment to an existing task order that we have with DPHHS immunization program, and this is for $38,591 additional dollars that came from the feds down to the state, and they're distributing it to local health jurisdictions, really to help with COVID vaccination planning. So the money, as soon as we get this amendment back to them, we should be getting the money this month. So it's going to be kind of an upfront payment through the end of this fiscal year that we can use for things like providing education and outreach to the community for COVID vaccination things. It can be used to collaborate with partners in the jurisdiction like pharmacies and other hospitals or other clinics. And we can use some of the money to actually help with maybe organizing some of our mass vaccine efforts and any storage and handling issues with the vaccine. So we could potentially use it to purchase another refrigerator or freezer if we needed to. So, and the money can be used retroactively because they acknowledge that this is coming a little late in the game, but they did get it and they're getting it out and hoping to actually get more. So there could be more money coming down the road. But for now, that brings up, every year we get about 45,000 is all from the state for our regular immunization clinic. So an additional 38,000, bringing us up to about 84,000. So.
Thanks, Colleen.
Welcome.
Just a thought. You should maybe consider reaching out to the Missoula Economic Partnership. And Chris, you're out there. I think in our last or one of our recent MAC calls, there was some indication that MEP had some leftover funds from their public outreach campaign earlier in last year related to mask use, and maybe you're already aware of this, Colleen, but perhaps there could be some additional resources that could be combined with these dollars to put towards outreach related to vaccination.
Great.
Yeah, they had about $5,000 left, Dave, if I remember correctly from that meeting.
Okay, not a huge amount, but a little bit.
Yeah, that would help. So definitely we'll reach out. I'll pass that on. So thank you. It's a good idea.
You bet.
Colleen, has there been a COVID effect on traditional immunizations?
Yes, definitely. I mean, around the country, we've seen a decrease in childhood vaccination rates. I think starting back in May, there was some evidence that rates were dropping across the country because people were staying at home and isolating and quarantining and social distancing, all those things. And so there was, I've been reading quite a few studies where, parents didn't want to take their kids out. They don't want to go to another clinic and expose possibly themselves to someone with COVID. So that's been seen around the country, and which is one of the reasons that I think it was in August that the Health and Human Services passed an amendment to the PrEP Act, the Public Health Emergency, whatever that stands for, saying that pharmacists can now help vaccinate kids and down to age 3, really trying to look at, how can we get as many people as possible to provide vaccinations and make it easy for people to pop in and get a shot, which, we have some issues with because now our legislature is trying to, there's a bill in the House right now that I'll testify on next week, and it's related to allowing pharmacists kind of forever to vaccinate kiddos down to the age of 3, not just during this public health emergency. And so we'd like to see some amendments to that, but I'm getting off track. So there's, we definitely agree that we see that there's been a drop in vaccination rates, and we need to get it up. Here in Missoula, I think we've seen the same thing. And at our clinic, we had to put kind of a temporary hold on routine vaccines while we were trying to figure out how to roll out our COVID vaccine. So we've just recently started seeing clients again in our clinic 3 days a week. Really, the month of January was pretty limited. So we're trying to get it back on track because we don't want outbreaks of other communicable diseases that are vaccine preventable. So yeah, I've been really on this kick of we have to get our clinic, we got to start seeing people again. So we're doing that. And
Good.
Yeah.
Glad to hear it. Thanks.
Yep.
Other questions or a motion?
I would move that the chair sign Amendment 1.
Second.
Any further discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks
All
for
right.
coming back.
Colleen.
Thank you very much.
All right, next at bat, Elena Evans. We have before us, let's see, agreement, PSA for engineering services related to Single Tree Bridge and Park restoration. This is a long time in coming. So, Elena?
Yeah, hi everybody. Elena Evans, hydrogeologist, Missoula Valley Water Quality District. This is a PSA with DJNA to put together engineering plans for better stream crossing, and then also to realign the road that is frequently inundated with water during spring. So that is for $21,444.41. We signed an agreement a month or so ago with DEQ to receive some of those funds, and then we're working with Public Works to match some of that DEQ funding to hopefully then take these engineering plans in the future and actually get funds to work with folks to actually implement these plans.
Elena, could you describe where this is for people on the call who may not have heard of this saga?
Certainly. So Single Tree Lane is up Miller Creek, a good, halfway up essentially. And there's been a good amount of work recently on Miller Creek upstream, with some work by the Clark Fork Coalition and then private landowners, and then further down. And this is a small double barrel culvert that was put in 60s or 70s, and basically the spring flows are just too high for what is currently in place to accommodate some of the aggradation and the changes in Miller Creek. So working with the landowners here, as this isn't a county maintained road, to possibly realign the road through some easements from those residents onto an area outside of the floodplain, and one that would likely better facilitate riparian area and easy access to those properties.
Great, thanks.
I don't have any questions. Let's keep moving forward. I move that the board approve the professional services agreement, the PSA with DJNA.
I'll second that. I needed an acronym in there, but I couldn't come up with it. But yeah, I'll just second that.
Great. Any further discussion on this? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thanks, Elena.
Thank you.
All right. We have 2 items coming before us from Matt Jennings. Matt?
Sad to say, Commissioners, you'll have to deal with me. I'm going to cover both of these items for.
Okay. We'll go for it.
Our request for number 5 is that the board appoint Lake County Attorney Steve Eschenbacher to be a special prosecutor in matter of State v. John Doe. My understanding is that this is a forgery case, that it may have been a forgery with a county department involved, and so the county potentially could be a victim, so to speak, and it would be more appropriate for an outside agency to handle any potential prosecution.
Great.
Okay. Motion?
I'd move that we approve the appointment of Steve Eschenbacher to help us in this matter.
Okay. Any further discussion on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Item number 6. So the request is to appoint the Montana Attorney General as a special prosecutor in 2 separate cases. That's going to be State v. Martinez and State v. Keeland. The reason for this request is those matters are failure to register under the state sexual offender registry. The Attorney General's office has a designated Deputy Attorney General who handles all of those matters and will prosecute both of those cases.
Sounds pretty straightforward.
Yeah. I move that we appoint Montana Attorney General as special prosecutor in State v. Martinez and State v. Keeland.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you, Brian.
All right. Our next item comes to us from Chris Lonsberry. It relates to a pay rate change for Chantel Gaynor.
Hi, yes, Commissioners, thanks. So when we originally signed Chantel's pay agreement or employment agreement, I made a mistake in the dates. set out for this. It was originally to include an increase effective January 1st related to the combination of the Criminal Justice Services Division and the Relationship Services Division into a new department, the Criminal Justice Division, or Community Justice Department, under Chantel as the department head. And so I accidentally had the wrong dates in those contracts. And so I'm requesting that we just amend only that section of our employment contract to have the correct dates for the rate of pay.
Another straightforward one. I'd move that that we approve and sign the amended employment agreement.
Second.
Any further discussion on this? All in favor?
Only to, yeah. All I'm going to say is it's a great thing that we have this new division, a wonderful combination of resources, and Chantel's perfect person to lead it. So
it is. Now I just need to remember what the name of it is. The division, new division.
Community Justice Division.
Community Justice Department.
Oh, department. Okay. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Okay, Kyla, do you want to round out our action items today with some appointments?
Sure. So the first one before you, commissioners, is the appointments for the Open Land Citizen Advisory Board. We have 2 vacant alternate terms. We had 2 applicants, Carly Lewis, which is in the Frenchtown region, and then Lee Tannendahl, which is the Clinton-Tura region. So we have the first alternate position and the second alternate position, and they be filling the remainder of the vacant terms through, one is through December 31st, 2021, and the other second alternate is through December 31st, 2022.
So is it accurate to say then we have 2 applicants for 2 alternate positions?
Correct.
And I guess I'm of the mind that I'd like to see. I really appreciate the matrix that CAPS put out or Juniper put out, demonstrating the needs for the Open Lands Committee. And so I like that Carly Lewis representing Frenchtown and Protein, and then I still kind of want to hold out for more representation in the Sealy Swan area. And since we already have representation from Clinton-Tura, I'm kind of the mind that I want to keep that open, that second alternate open. But I don't
certainly be in order.
I like that logic one. I've heard plenty from the folks in Sealy Swan that generally in county government, they feel like they haven't been heard enough. So maybe this behooves us to do a little more direct marketing out in that area, but I think it would be a good idea.
Yep, that sounds like a plan. So is that your motion, Juanita?
I will make a clearer motion, and that I move to appoint Carly Lewis to the Open Lands Advisory Committee, and let's do some more outreach in other areas of the county. Oops, Sarah Bell has her hand up.
Sarah Bell raising her hand.
Sarah.
Hi. I also just wanted to note that there's actually 4 alternates on this committee, so there is additional room. We've never had all 4 of them filled since I've been here, but just so you know, there is room for 4 alternates.
Okay, that's good to know.
Thanks, Sarah.
Okay, so Juanita, I think you just made a motion.
Yes.
Josh, did you want to second that?
I'll second.
Okay. Any further discussion on the motion to appoint Carly as the first alternate, I guess it would be, to the Open Lands Committee? Seeing none.
Only a little discussion piece on this. Kyla, can we make sure when we send Lee a letter, we describe to him our desire for broader geographic representation, and that this isn't just no Lee, but there's a reason behind it, and we're seeking someone who's from an area that is not yet represented, and his area is currently represented.
Yes, certainly, I'll include that.
And also that any and all folks are always welcome to attend these meetings, even if you're not an appointment.
Yeah. Doesn't mean that he can't come.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, let's vote on this. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Kyla, the next one,
The next
Elections
one-
Advisory Committee.
Elections Advisory Committee. So we had 2 terms that expired January 31st of this year. Both current members submitted their letters of interest, Denver Henderson and Shibu Arens. And then we had 2 new applicants, Jennifer Copley and Jane Kelly. So we have 2 terms to fill through the end of January 31st, 2024.
Okay.
So
And I
we're in an interesting spot here. I feel like having been part of this committee, I can say that Shibu and Denver are dedicated, hardworking members of this committee, and we should be very happy that they are excited to re-up and make sure that they do. And at the same time, we also have people from the community who want to be involved, and we don't want to discourage that either. And unfortunately, there's only room for 2 here. Especially want to point out Ms. Copley, who's an absolute expert on civics and government. Having my children were her students when she taught AP government. It'd be great to have her, but if you guys see some way around this, let me know. But it looks like we should just re-up our Shibu and Denver.
And then, like you said, that they can still participate and still attend meetings and
yeah, and similar to the last one, Kylie, when you send her a note, please let her know that both these folks know that 2 existing people have re-upped to proven themselves wonderful, and we're not going to push them aside. But we would really be wonderful, even more wonderful, if we had these 2 people attend these meetings and be part of the discussions. The discussions are robust and vibrant, and their voices will be heard, and be great to have them involved.
Yeah, neither of the new applicants should be totally blindsided by that, since we gave them a little bit of a heads up during their interviews that typically we would, barring some extraordinary circumstance, reappoint folks who wanted to be reappointed. So, Josh, was there a motion embedded in there somewhere?
I would move that Shibu and Denver hold on to their spots.
Excellent.
second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And finally, Kyla,
Okay.
Sealy Lake Community Council.
Yes, we had a vacancy. Chris Martin, the elected member, had to resign early. So we had 2 new applicants for the position, John Richards and Sharon Teague. It would be appointing someone to fill the remainder of the vacant term, which is through May 31st, 2023.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, what was that date again, Kyla?
May 31st, 2023.
Okay. All right. What do y'all think?
I make a motion to appoint Sharon Teague. She has a breadth of community involvement. I mean, 30 some odd years up there, elementary school teacher. Very community minded. I think she'd be an excellent addition to that council.
Well said, Juan, and I will second that.
Very good. Any further discussion on the appointment? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thanks.
Thanks, Commissioners.
Wow, we made it. We made it through a lot of appointments in the first month of this year. It's been a marathon.
We did. There was a flurry of interviewing and appointing.
Yeah. Yes, there has been. Okay, well, that concludes our action items today. We've got a couple pieces of correspondence to discuss. Chris, would you like to introduce the letter to the Missoula County Public Schools Board regarding 6th Street, the 6th Street admin building?
Certainly. So, Commissioners, you had asked staff to draft a letter in support of the Montgomery project on 6th Street and coming up with an adaptive reuse for the historic high school that became the administrative building on 6th Street. Thanks to our phenomenal communications staff. Sorry, my cat has decided that now is the time to try and jump in my lap. Thanks to our phenomenal communications staff, Allison was able to put together some historical information that I have together for the letter that you have today in support of that project. It's addressed to Pat McHugh and the subcommittee of the Board of Trustees that's working on that project.
Hey, Chris, my cursor's frozen. I can't get to the, is it super long? Can you read it to us, or is it?
I will probably ask Allison if she has a copy that she can pull up. I apologize, I don't have one right in front of me. So,
would you like me to email it to you, Juanita, or?
Oh, sure. I'm just frozen, and so I was just wondering if yeah.
Dave, if you're looking at it, is it long? Could you read it? Or if it's long, we can.
Well, I don't have it in front of me at the moment either.
I don't either, sorry.
I figured Allison would have the fastest access.
I can find it.
So when was this building last a school?
So it was last a school more than 60 years ago when it was used as a high school.
That's what I thought. So yeah. My understanding is the rules that the school board have been functioning under say that no alcohol should be allowed on school property, which seems like it makes a lot of sense. Want to be clear that this has not been a school since what, like the Korean War or something. So we're in adaptive reuse of this building is great community development and in no way endangers any child.
Yeah.
Thanks for
so
bringing that up.
I have the letter if you would like me to read it quick.
Thanks for bringing that up. We do have a hand up, Diane Lawrenson.
Are you taking public comment at this time?
Sure.
So my name is Diane Lorenzen. I'm on the school board. I have been for 8 years. I'm on the committee. We are currently, as you know, the board voted to lease. We received one response. We're reviewing the response, and then COVID happened. And I think no one was more set back by the pandemic than the school district. And so we're trying to work our way through this process. The last we heard was that the proposal had been modified to exclude alcohol. We're still talking with this applicant. So I guess I would like to say this letter feels like pressure to me. And I'll tell you, the school does not need pressure right now. MCPS has occupied this building for 100 years. We've been out of it for 3 months. And I guess given all my years on the board, I haven't seen the county commission step up and express interest in any particular facility. So this feels really without context. We have other facilities that I think would be of much more interest to the county commission than this one. So I learned that this letter was coming. I was very surprised because that hasn't been what the county commission has done in the past. And like I said, it feels like pressure to me. And I guess I wished we didn't have pressure. We have a lot the way it is.
Thanks, Diane. I would add that to some extent, yeah, without a doubt, it is some pressure, and that we are advocating for adaptive reuse of a historic structure that would also promote economic development. And the city of Missoula is within Missoula County. And I think we have a vested interest in the success of business in our county. And you may be right that past commissions have not weighed in on such matters, but we have a new commission. And I think we are very interested in working with and collaborating with community partners of other governmental jurisdictions to see our community succeed. Did you have a follow-up, Diane?
Well, I guess as a county member, I'm thinking, what could the commission's interest be? It could be that they could collect property tax. But then there are other interested parties we've heard of who would be nonprofits. And so I guess with the commission weighing in interest on the side of more taxing, it would almost preclude the renting of this to a nonprofit. It just feels, well, I won't say it again, it just feels misplaced at this time.
Thank you for your
Dave,
comments.
can I speak to that a little bit? I'm not coming at this personally from a taxation standpoint, but from an adaptive reuse, economic development, community revitalization standpoint.
Yeah, I would concur with that. There are two main pieces, and I think we've articulated that in the letter and here. There's the broader economic development, community vibrancy piece, which for me in this case, much less to do with taxation than other community values, because it is within the city of Missoula, and any tax revenue that Missoula County would be receiving from this is different than what you'd be seeing from the city of Missoula. So that's really not even on my radar screen. It's more community vibrancy, utilizing a piece of property in a way that benefits the overall community, and also from a historic preservation standpoint. This community has not done the greatest job over the years in terms of hanging on to and adaptively reusing cherished and valued historic structures. I would hate for this particular structure to fall into the same category as too many others have, and slip away either through the wrecking ball or through just kind of demolition by neglect, if you will.
There you go.
Other public comment on this? Okay, well, this will be distributed via DocuSign for the commission to sign. Thanks, Diane, for joining us today. Okay, our second letter. Who wants to speak to this one?
I think I can speak to this one. This is about double snap, correct?
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're the expert.
Yeah, so here's the situation. For those who don't know, SNAP is EBT, also known as food stamps. There's a program that exists right now that funded through nonprofits and grants, where if a person can double their SNAP dollars at farmers markets and at some CSAs up to $20. So we're talking about the most nutritionally dense food being made available to those who need it the most. Well, right now, the federal government is offering the state of Montana $500,000 to beef up our state's program, but they want to see a one-to-one match. This would get double snap out to a whole bunch of communities across the state that right now aren't making use of it. It's being made use of in the big communities that you would expect, but not out all across the state. So in terms of getting this one-to-one match for $500,000, CFAC, Community Food and Agriculture Coalition, has raised $300,000 of private funding. They're asking the state to kick in $2. So looking at this as public investment, the state kicks in $2, and we get a total of $1 million to get the highest quality food out to those who most need it, and the money gets funneled through our agricultural sector. This is win-win-win, and it's statewide. Missoula is included in that. So this is a letter saying, let's move forward on double snap.
That sounds like a great return on investment.
My goodness, yeah.
And really impressive with CFAC.
They did a
so
great
lucky.
job. Yeah, they did a great job of thinking statewide when they've really just been here. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, great. And Josh, did you testify on this?
I did. I was outstanding in my 3 minutes. I think there was some nodding off, but mostly people remained moderately attentive. It's, and as you guys know who've done this, we're faceless but not voiceless, and you get to look at a room full of people looking at their papers and checking their phones while you're blathering on in the corner from a speaker. It's a crummy situation. It's all COVID. I'm not saying anything. It's great that the state has made this technology available. It's just yet another bummer of this pandemic.
All right.
At the same time, it's nice not having to drive to Helena too.
True. Very true. Especially when there are roads that are icy. Good point.
Yeah.
Very good. So that will come to us via DocuSign also. Okay, moving on to some discussion items here. We have, what is this here? March, our month of March, all community council meeting agenda.
So we were chatting yesterday about seeing if we could get MEP on there.
Yes, I think that would be an excellent idea.
Great.
So are we just brainstorming topics? Is that what we're doing?
There was a topic, commissioners, that was going to be put on the agenda, but then, of course, after I put it on the agenda, they removed that item, so it's no longer needed for discussion. But I can add MEP on there.
And when you add MEP, Kyla, would you mind reaching out to Grant and Julie and Nicole and making sure they get invited and have all the necessary links?
I will certainly do that.
Thank you very much.
And that just jogged my memory. I think there was an ask that I present a little bit on the Big Sky Passenger Rail Authority.
Correct.
So if you want to work me into the agenda for a little bit, that's fine.
Okay.
What's the date? I'm sorry.
The February one is the 24th. And the March one is also the 24th.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Well, I can do my rail thing on the February one, that or whichever one works the best.
I can put it on February with MEP, and we'll just go from there.
Okay, that sounds good. Thanks.
Thank you.
Was there something else that? Yeah. Was there another topic for all community council?
We might. I don't remember.
Yeah, there's so many times when we're in these meetings and we're like, we need to add that to our all community council. And
well, if anyone here on the line thinks of it, I think there's a few other people that were party to that meeting. So if you remember,
Dave, I think it would be great if in February we could have Adrian or Nick Holloway come and do a little VAX update, because things will have changed by then, and it's the one thing everyone is absolutely on the edge of their seats about. So that would be great too, as well.
Yeah, let's do that. I think everyone really appreciates those updates.
Oh, I know what it was. It was the floodplain stuff for Salmon Lake, or the new floodplain mapping that's happening.
I know that it's happening, but it's not jogging my memory. But
yeah, I have no recollection of that. But if someone did articulate a desire to hear that, then I guess we certainly could.
I thought this was the conversation about the guy who was in DC and how his polyester suit has changed sizes. That email chain. Thank you.
Dave, I just got to say, I've been waiting 2 years in politics to say this. I have no specific recollection.
Nice. Yeah.
The other one, could I say mistakes were made? That's my favorite one.
Memories were lost.
Was it Todd Cleats?
No, it was. Yeah.
Okay.
It was. I don't.
We could ask Todd to come and do an update on the floodplain mapping project.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't affect everybody, but people may be interested.
That was what I was thinking.
Sure.
And if he doesn't want to, then or if they don't think it's worthwhile, that's fine too.
Well, and we also have the month of March. So if this doesn't work out schedule wise in February, we could bump it to the next meeting.
We could put Todd in March. That would be, they might have more results back by then too.
And
which would actually be, it would have a nice timing with flooding. So it would kind of feel relevant.
There we go.
Yes.
I'll go ahead and reach out to Todd and see if he'd be available for that March meeting.
Thank you.
Thanks for that. Okay, moving on to any other legislative updates. I know, I think both Josh and I testified yesterday. Was it the SNAP bill you testified on yesterday?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And so I wish I could say I knew what happened, but I did my testimony and then I jumped back onto our CAPS meeting. So I don't even know if the committee thumbs up or thumbs down it. I don't.
Yeah, they most often do not vote right at that time.
Okay.
The bills. Yeah, I testified on, I think it was HB 104, which was our bill related to extending the lease period for county property to 30 years from its current 10 years. And as usual, there was very little discussion amongst the committee members. Shane Morgeau is on the committee, Senate committee, and asked me one question that I prompted him to ask me. So I think that all turned out okay, and there were no opponents. So I'm cautiously optimistic that one will sail through.
Yeah.
Great.
Chris?
So I have a few bills for you today, commissioners, to get your thoughts on and let you know where we are on.
Yeah.
Just because they are bills I think that will be of interest to you. Some of them may not be of interest to you, but I apologize if they aren't. So HB 257 is a law revising laws relating to government mandates and businesses, sponsored by Representative Hinkle out of Belgrade. This was heard in the House Judiciary. We weighed in opposition on your behalf on this bill. This bill basically, couple of examples. For example, it's another bill targeting health authority in kind of a backdoor manner, but it would have in essence prevented local governments and health departments from issuing an order that prohibited a business from doing something that was lawful. So the example I always give, for example, was the cigar club issue that we had in Missoula, where it moved into the same building as the Children's Museum, and we had to do enforcement action because they didn't have an air separation system between those two. This would have prohibited that kind of action from going forward, because having a shop that sells cigars and where people smoke cigars is not illegal. Having a children's museum is not illegal, and so therefore you would not have been able to, they're both legal activities, so therefore you would not have been able to issue an order that would have required the separation of the air handling systems between those two buildings. So not a particularly wonderful bill as it is. HB 258 is the other one we weighed in on opposition on your behalf. This is revised laws related to firearms, ammunitions, and accessories, and this bill created a serious concern for our county attorney's office. It prohibited law enforcement and the county attorney's office from investigating any crime basically related to that could eventually lead to firearms that were legally used. So as the county attorney's office pointed out, when a crime first occurs, they don't know when they're doing the investigation what the ultimate charge would be. And this would say that if there was any way that investigation could lead to a charge related to firearms, you can't enforce that and investigate that crime. So that was not a great bill.
Say that again?
So it's a bill that prohibited any law enforcement action against firearms. So law enforcement, for example, or the county attorney's office could not prosecute any criminal offenses related to firearms as long as the firearms were legally owned. The problem with that, as the county attorney's office points out, is you don't know the answer at the start of the investigation, right? You find the answers as you go through the investigative process. And so this would have made it so that anytime they thought a firearm was potentially involved at all, and the person who owned the firearm legally, they couldn't investigate the original crime that occurred because it could potentially lead back to firearms. And so the example that Kirsten gave that I thought was effective is a lot of the drug-related crimes that they investigate start off as drug charges, but also have federal firearms charges attached to them because they often find both legal and illegal firearms being possessed by folks. And they would not be able to investigate those drug crimes because there's the potential that some of the firearms could be legally owned. And that doesn't really work because, again, you don't know the end answer at the start of the investigation. So it just really tried to make kind of a rat's nest out of their investigatory process. And so as they pointed out, they don't charge people with legally owning firearms, nor would they. The problem is when folks illegally possess them and they're related to other criminal activity. So
okay, I'm sorry to belabor this, but I'm really struggling. What was the bill actually trying to get at? Because
I don't know what it was.
What would the proponents say?
Right, I say, well, the proponents in this case are in essence arguing that they don't want law enforcement in any way enforcing any federal regulation around firearms that might be perceived as infringing on the Second Amendment. That's the legislative intent in it.
But the accidental consequence is that this would hamper law enforcement and county attorneys to do investigations on things like drugs that have nothing to do initially with firearms. But as they move through those investigations, they could stumble into firearms issues.
Correct. That's exactly it's the law of unintended consequences.
I bet somewhat ironically, and maybe this is a bit of cynicism creeping out this morning. I can't help but think maybe some of these same folks would have no problem with local law enforcement enforcing federal immigration laws. But
as a matter of fact, they passed a bill requiring that. So, yeah. HB 176 was originally a tabled bill, so I didn't bring that to you earlier, but it has been untabled. This bill would close late voter registration originally on the Friday before and now on the Monday before an election. For those of you who've been around for a while, which is all of you, but not necessarily as county commissioners, you might recall that back in the I believe it was 2015 or 2017 legislative session, this was actually put out as a legislative referendum that the citizens actually voted on, whether they wanted to end late voter registration in the state of Montana. Overwhelmingly, 57% of the population voted to continue to have late voter registration and same-day voter registration. This bill would end same-day voter registration as a process, despite the fact that the public has weighed in on this measure and said overwhelmingly that they want to keep it. So we are weighing in opposition, believing that the voters have had their say and that the legislature should respect the will of the public related to same-day voter registration and later voter.
I remember, I think the proponents of this said that the same-day registration was too much work for clerks and recorders.
Yes.
And yet the Clerks and Recorders Association did not come out for or against this bill.
Their membership is split. They did not come out for or against this bill.
Yeah.
I will tell you that Bradley said, though, that again, Missoula County being one of the largest counties by population and having a significant number of folks who show up for late and same-day voter registration has experienced challenges around this, but has always been successful in getting every voter who was legally qualified to vote to be able to vote.
I was going to say that this is no surprise that election day happens on the day that it does. And these folks involved are professionals and they have all year to plan. So I wasn't moved at all by it's just too hard for them because they plan for it, they train people, they make it happen. And as you pointed out, Bradley, who has a really hard job, has been successful at this.
Well, and I think one of the biggest, from my perspective, one of the biggest things around this is in the state of Montana, we have a form of motor voter registration, right? So you go to register, get your driver's license, and you can register to vote. But that system has historically failed, right? Where information has not been accurately transferred, and it's been missing pieces of information. And we see a lot of those folks who show up and think, I'm registered to vote because I got my driver's license. I signed the card that says I should be eligible to vote. They go to vote and then they're not there. Well, that often happens on the same day because they're expecting that they're registered to vote. They don't go online to check and they go there to vote. This would remove their ability to vote through no fault of their own, right? Like it's not that they weren't planning on voting. It's not that they did anything wrong. They thought they took all of the steps they needed to, and a computer software issue now has them ineligible to vote. And so not a fan of that particular bill for that reason. As you're aware, HB 102, this is the one sponsored by Representative Burgley, is out of the House and in the Senate. We are continuing to weigh in opposition. This is the one that would remove completely the ability for us to regulate firearms in any public building. So that's we've weighed in against that. I will say it has been amended, which we appreciate the amendment. It would now allow the courthouse, at least, because it has courts in it, to exclude firearms from it. But that would be the only building that we would be able to exclude firearms from.
Not our admin building.
Not our admin building or any of our other public spaces. The good news is, no, I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it. And the last one I wanted to just let you know on that we've decided not to take a position on is HB 254, which you might hear a little bit about, and it is to revise the Wrongful Discharge from Employment Act in the state of Montana. So right now in the state of Montana, unless your personnel policies or union contracts specify otherwise, employees serve an automatic 6-month probationary period, and then after that become regular employees. This would extend the 6-month probationary period to a default of 12 months instead of 6 months, which, I could be persuaded either way is good or bad. But what's good about it that we like in the bill is for employees who are on an employment contract, myself included, it would allow you to have a true probationary period in the employment contract, which you cannot currently do because of a Supreme Court case that says employment contracts must be for a specified term. And so this would actually allow that probationary period for employment contracts. So that's the good of the bill. The probationary automatic 12-month probationary period, which limits, not in Missoula County's case, but for a lot of employers, when employees actually get to access their benefits. We don't have that because state law says when employees can access their benefits and it's not tied to the probationary period. For a lot of employers, though, that means a lot of employees are not going to have access to benefits potentially for a year in their employment. So,
Chris, can we suggest amending it to try to keep the good and remove
Yeah, I
the
was
bad.
thinking the same thing.
We can. It was. I will just tell you, it had wide support across the state of Montana. Not necessarily from local governments, from the private sector. It had wide support. Opposition was primarily bargaining. Labor organizations who were concerned about the 12-month probationary period. So we can certainly ask Rebecca to see if the sponsor would be willing to amend the bill. To move back the probationary period to 6 months, but I don't know what luck we would have with that.
So Chris, I want to just make sure I understand. If this works, people could get hired for a job. There's a 12-month probationary period. So that means within the first 12 months of their job that they will be receiving benefits for, they would not actually receive benefits during those first 12 months?
It is possible. So in public employment, our benefits automatically kick in for sick leave at 90 days and for vacation at 6 months by state law. But a lot of public employers private employers tie your end of probation to your benefits. So things like access to health care, to health insurance, access to vacation, and access to sick. On the private sector, those are quite often tied to completing a successful probationary period. And
so
that's
you could have 12 months of no health insurance.
You could.
That's so terrible.
So Chris, there would not be anything that would preclude an employer from offering benefits earlier than that. It's just that they would not be required to. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
So lots of good employers will still offer benefits in that probationary period. Lots of maybe not as friendly employers will now get to wait an additional 6 months.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, we can just hope that prosperity returns and there'll be a tight job market and people will do the right thing in the name of attracting good employees.
Yeah.
For anything else.
Yeah. So it's a mixed bag. Like I said, it has some good things in it. It has some bad things in it. So we just decided to stay neutral at this point. No local governments came in either in support or opposition. So. And I know you have another meeting. That was the last thing I had. Sorry.
Well, thanks, Chris.
No,
the rest of your time.
All good. In the last minute, any COVID updates? I know vaccination is going on out there, and
it is. In case folks did not see today, starting, I believe Allison's on here. I believe it was 1 o'clock, Allison, in the press release that folks can start registering.
Yep, 1 p.m. A link will go live on our COVID-19.mozilla.co site, and we also have about 20% of the appointments reserved just for people who need to call in for assistance in scheduling an appointment, who maybe don't have internet access or just aren't proficient online. So we're hoping that will help with an equitable appointment system going.
And these are for people who have underlying conditions and are older than how old?
These are for people they're in 1B, but they're in tier 1, which is people who are over 70 and Native Americans and people of color. 16.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Well, thanks everyone. We've got to jump off for another meeting, but
Thank you.
have a great day.
Hey, Dave and Juan,